Are you tired of needing others to feel good about yourself? Do you sometimes catch yourself wondering what people think of you? And adjusting your words, your clothes, your smile, even your dreams, just to fit in? Do you feel like your happiness depends on how others treat you, or how much recognition you get? If you answered yes to any of these questions, this video is for you. Because what you're experiencing is not weakness. It's a human pattern, one that traps millions of people in a silent kind of suffering, the need to be seen, approved of, validated before they can finally feel whole. But what if there was a way out? A way to be deeply connected to others without being dependent on them, to love without needing to be loved back, to walk through the world with a quiet strength, unshaken by criticism, untouched by flattery, not because you've become cold, but because you've become free. That's what this video is about. This is a journey into the art of detachment, not as a form of indifference, but as the doorway to your most authentic self. And if you stay with me until the end, I promise you this: you will begin to see the world and yourself through completely different eyes. Let's begin. Part 1. Why you feel so dependent on others. We all begin life in absolute dependence. A child cannot survive without the care, love, and attention of others. So it makes perfect sense that we grow up with a deep-seated need to be seen and accepted. But something happens along the way. We start to confuse love with approval and connection with conformity. We learn to measure our worth through the mirror of others. We become addicted to their gaze, whether it's the praise of a parent, the smile of a friend, or the validation of strangers online. Carl Jung described this process as the formation of the persona, the social mask we put on to be liked, respected, and included. The problem isn't the mask itself. It's that we forget we're wearing one, and we slowly lose touch with who we really are underneath. The fear of disapproval becomes paralyzing. The absence of recognition feels like rejection. And every time we betray ourselves to be liked, something inside us dims. But here's the truth. You were never meant to live like this. You were not born to shape-shift endlessly for others. You were born to be whole. Part 2. The hidden cost of seeking approval. Let's be honest, we all care about what people think. The problem is when we care too much. When we say yes to things we don't want. When we stay silent to avoid being judged. When we post things online, not because they're true to us, but because they'll get more likes. Psychologically, this overdependence on external validation creates a fragile self-esteem. It's built on sand, not rock. One wrong word, one critical glance, and we collapse inward. And it's exhausting. Science confirms this. Studies in behavioral psychology show that extrinsic motivation, doing things to gain rewards or avoid punishment, is less sustainable and fulfilling than intrinsic motivation, doing things because they feel right to us. The more we rely on the outside world to feel worthy, the more anxious, insecure, and disconnected we become. This isn't just about confidence. It's about freedom. Because until you learn to stand in your own truth, the world will keep shaking you. Part 3. Jung, the Shadow, and the Trap of People-Pleasing. Carl Jung went further. He said that the parts of ourselves we suppress to be loved, the anger, the sadness, the desire, the power, we push into the shadow. We don't get rid of these parts. We just hide them. But they don't disappear. They come back as anxiety, depression, resentment, and they sabotage our relationships. Why? Because people-pleasing is not love. It's manipulation. It's fear in disguise. You act nice to avoid conflict. You agree to avoid rejection. But deep down, you're not giving love. You're negotiating safety, and real intimacy becomes impossible because nobody truly sees you. They only see the version of you you've created to be accepted. That's not connection. That's performance. Part 4. The beginning of freedom. Detachment without coldness. Detachment is not withdrawal. It's not arrogance. It's not saying, I don't care about anyone. It's saying, I care about myself enough not to be owned by what others think. It's the difference between connection and dependency. Connection is rooted in presence. Dependency is rooted in fear. When you learn to detach from the need for approval, something extraordinary happens. You start to feel alive. You laugh when you want to laugh. You speak when you have something to say. You stop seeking permission to exist. And paradoxically, people are drawn to you, not because you're trying to please them, but because you're real. Part 5. Neuroscience, meditation, and the rewiring of the self. Let's bring in some science. The brain is constantly rewiring itself through neuroplasticity. Every time you suppress yourself for approval, you reinforce a neural loop. I am only safe when I'm accepted. But you can reverse this. Mindfulness-based practices, especially meditation, have been shown to increase activity in the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for self-awareness and regulation, and decrease activity in the amygdala, which processes fear. In other words, meditation trains your brain to respond instead of react, to observe instead of over-identify. You stop being a puppet pulled by the strings of judgment and praise. You become the witness of your own experience. Over time, your sense of self becomes anchored, not in other people's opinions, but in your own quiet, steady presence. Part 6. How to stop letting others define you. Here's the heart of it. You don't need to stop caring about others. You need to stop needing them to define you, and that starts with radical self-honesty. Ask yourself, am I acting from love or from fear? Am I saying yes to avoid guilt or because it aligns with me? Am I seeking recognition or expressing truth? Every day you are faced with a choice. Be accepted by others or be true to yourself. Sometimes they go together. Often they don't. And when they don't, you have to be willing to disappoint others, to not disappoint yourself. This is not easy, but it is essential. Part 7. The beauty of solitude. If you fear being alone, it's often because you haven't learned how to be with yourself. Solitude is not a punishment. It is a sacred space. It's in solitude that the noise fades. The voices of your parents, your friends, your culture, they fall silent. And you begin to hear you, your needs, your values, your truth. Great thinkers, from Nietzsche to Simone Weil, from Buddha to the Stoics, all spoke of the necessity of inner retreat, not as escape, but as alignment. When you stop chasing external validation, you begin to walk your own path, not the one designed for you by others, but the one you were born to follow. Part 8. Loving without needing. And here's the irony. When you become detached from the need for approval, you become capable of real love. Because love that needs to be returned is not love. It's a transaction. When you no longer need people to validate you, you can finally see them, not as mirrors, but as beings. You can give without controlling. You can forgive without conditions. You can walk away when it's time, not because you don't care, but because you respect yourself. Detachment isn't the end of love. It's the beginning of true love. Part 9. Living as a free human being. Imagine this. You wake up. You move through your day without anxiety about what others think. You express yourself without apology. You are kind, but firm, open, but sovereign. You listen, but you don't absorb negativity as truth. You don't shrink when criticized. You don't puff up when praised. You are no longer dancing for applause. You are dancing because it's who you are. That's what Carl Jung meant when he said, "Nothing has a stronger influence on the child than the unlived life of the parent." Detachment is how we break that inheritance. It's how we live our own life, fully, freely, honestly. Conclusion: the deepest freedom. You are not here to be liked. You are here to be real. You are here to live your truth, not their expectations. When you finally let go of needing others to approve of you, you become unstoppable. You become unshakable. And then, nothing will ever hurt you the same way again, because the only thing that ever truly hurt was not being true to yourself. If this resonated with you, subscribe to the channel. There is more to explore, more truth to uncover, and a whole life waiting on the other side of approval.